This is Sparta!
Hey everyone, this is Big Deal Gaming and welcome to another Gunfire Reborn guide. Did you want to kill everything and leave your friends wondering why they played with you today? Do you want to move up the pecking order in your group? Well, this guide will make your friends envious and your ego inflated. In this video, we will be showing you how to get a strong kick build with the bird. Bird is one of my favorite characters in the game, and since the buffs he has gotten recently, his numbers have jumped up quite a bit. He can become virtually immortal and has one of the strongest early games and late games out of all characters. To give you a brief description of what I'm looking for with this build, usually I'm looking for choices that increase my leap damage, options that reduce the cooldown on my leap, and a few choices here and there to increase my survivability. He is very reliant on landing his leap, as one miss can set his damage back quite a bit, and that will lead us into our first section, the spiritual blessings. The first spiritual blessing you're going to be looking for is Unstoppable Momentum, the bread and butter of this build. Like I have mentioned in the previous video, you can restart the run if the re-rolling costs get too high. This blessing offers two things that make this build strong. It gives you a damage boost up to 1000% and a chance to reset your leap's cooldown up to 50% based on the number of stacks you have. It means that if you miss one leap, you will lose all your damage boost and have to build stacks again. Now, it's not too hard to get your stacks back up since each enemy hit will give you one stack, but it really does hurt to lose them. Ultimate Gambler is what you are hoping to get as your second spiritual blessing, as the earlier you get this, the more useful it is. The reason it is so highly rated for this build is that we are hunting for the Ascension all or nothing. Once we get that Ascension, the order we pick up other Ascensions changes. This build is picky with Ascensions. Due to this, Ultimate Gambler is considered S tier. It is an amazing choice for this build if you want a smoother run in terms of Ascensions. However, keep in mind that it is still RNG based. The third spiritual blessing you want to look for is Field Proficiency. Now, you might be wondering why this one would come before the damage boosting choices like Oppressor or Overconsumption. That is because cooldown reduction with this build is king. The moment you leap someone and you cannot leap again, you go into a mild panic mode and either hide or flail around trying to survive while waiting for your leap to be usable again. The scaling cooldown reduction this offers is too good to pass up and will help both your damage and survivability by synergizing with some Ascensions I will be talking about later. The first spiritual blessing in the A tier is Overconsumption. This spiritual blessing recently received a buff, making it give us 300% damage boost and a 50% cooldown reduction. It does have a drawback of having to be picky with your scrolls to try to keep the most of your damage and cooldown reduction boosts. To keep as much as the cooldown reduction as possible, you will have to be more selective with the scrolls the higher the rarity. But to be fair, if you just want the damage it offers, then you can take every scroll you see and you will still end up with a decent boost to your damage. Oppressor is the other spiritual blessing in the A tier and a great choice for some damage and survivability. The best thing you can do to optimize this blessing is to get the scroll Paranormality. It will allow you to always stay at 100% HP, gaining a permanent 150% boost to damage. However, even if you are not able to get this scroll, having your HP drop will still give you a 30% damage reduction, which is still a very useful buff. The first spiritual blessing in the B tier is Jackpot. It is always a decent pick on any character as it allows you to have more gold to help yourself and other teammates. It does become a decent damage boost and moves up the tier list to being behind Overconsumption if you have the extravagant Consumption scroll. Bladed Cleave is the last option in B tier and is only here due to the fact that it gives you an execute on normal and elite monsters with 25% HP or less, and with bosses 15% HP or less. If you are struggling with bosses and elites, this can be a decent choice, but if you are not, then you should probably be taking anything else that we talked about previously. Now, we're going to be talking about the spiritual blessings in C tier, which you most likely want to avoid, but that can offer some utility. The first two in C tier are Steady Profit and Occult Booster. They will give you more chances at obtaining enhanced scrolls. This makes them both an okay choice, but nothing that special. The final two in C tier are Painkiller and Copycat. They will offer you a slight boost to survivability, but overall are not really worth taking. All the remaining options are in the D tier, and they are the spiritual blessings you want to try to avoid picking up as much as possible. Now, Let's move on to the golden goblets, also known as Ascensions, you should be choosing. First and foremost with this character, you can never go wrong with any of the blue choices. They all help your leap out in a different way, and they are all worth taking. The first Ascension you want to look out for is All or Nothing. It allows you to increase your damage based on your armor, which means you will want to increase your armor at every chance possible. This Ascension is the centerpiece of this build, as the damage increase it offers is amazing and synergizes with some of the choices I will mention later. But with the huge amount of damage this offers, it also comes with a big flaw. You need to sacrifice all of your armor with every leap, and you only get back 20% of your armor for each enemy hit. This can get you killed on elites and bosses, as they are usually only a single target fight. Last Breath is the second Ascension in S tier, as it gives you the biggest damage boost out of all other options. On top of the damage it offers, it will refund you some of the cooldown for each enemy you kill with leap. This will help you to keep leaping when clearing out ads. The last Ascension in S tier is Gigantic Explosion. It is one of the best choices, as it gives you a good amount of cooldown reduction to help you with spamming your leap, and also gives you an increase to size of leap, making it harder to miss. The size increase is not to be underplayed here, as you will sometimes kill enemies you didn't even know were there, or you thought were out of your range. The last thing I'll say about this Ascension is that it actually does give one of the best damage boosts to your leap if you manage to max it out. Before we get into the A tier choices, if you do not manage to get All or Nothing and are starting to struggle in fights, the position of a regen hit and Nova Shockwave moves to a B tier, and fully equipped and close combat move up to A tier. Regen hit is the first Ascension in the A tier and one of the better defensive options you're going to find. It will allow you to get a decent amount of armor back after you lose it to All or Nothing. This Ascension synergizes amazingly with All or Nothing by filling your armor back up after every leap, and in turn, keeping you alive. However, you can ignore Tier 3 since it is not worth taking. Nova Shockwave is the second Ascension in A tier and offers two powerful effects for this build. The first thing it offers is a boost to your armor for each enemy killed with leap. This will increase your survivability by giving you a bigger health pool and increase your damage with All or Nothing. The second thing it offers is an AoE of damage when your armor breaks based on how much armor you have. The synergy here is too good to pass up on a leap build using All or Nothing, since you will lose all of your armor on every leap. The last Ascension in A tier is Steel Armor, and it is the one that will stay in A tier whether or not you manage to get All or Nothing. This Ascension gets to be one of the most broken defensive choices if you get it to Tier 2, as you become invincible for 2 seconds after every leap, making you practically immortal with enough cooldown reduction. In the B tier, your first choice will be fully equipped. This Ascension helps with the damage and cooldown reduction of leap while offering some armor regen. The downside to this Ascension is that the buff has 2 to 3 second duration and also only applies after your first leap, meaning every new fight your first leap will not receive any of the damage buffs or cooldown reduction. Close Combat is one of the most straightforward and simple options, but it is nonetheless a decent damage buff. With this Ascension, you will hit enemies harder when they are close to you, which will apply to your leap as long as they are within range. Last Stand is the next Ascension in B tier. The reason this Ascension is in B tier and not higher is that the buffs it offers are not bad, but also not that amazing compared to some other options. It gives a boost to skill damage, makes you take reduced damage, and gives an immunity to slows when your armor breaks. This defensive aspect is not needed because of previous choices, and the immunity to slow is not needed when we are using leap to fly from enemy to enemy. Overall, these buffs are all decent, but not enough to push this above the previous choices. The last Ascension in B tier is Iron Scud. This Ascension is only really useful for the armor buff it offers after using leap, since this extra armor will start to increase our damage through All or Nothing. In the C tier, we have Deathmark that can be used to buff your damage dealt to enemies you have hit with your cleave. With this, you should cleave every now and then to ensure that your leap one-shots enemies, but this should only be chosen if none of the S to B tier options are available. Defensive Cleave is the last Ascension in the C tier and a last resort choice. If you are really struggling to survive, you can take this Ascension to use Cleave as a way to restore armor. However, any other survival option related to leap would make a better choice. All the remaining options are in the D tier, and they are Ascensions you want to try to avoid picking up as much as possible. Here's an example of an ideal full build with a few scrolls to keep an eye out for while doing the run. You will want to use either a lightning or poison sword as a weapon to give you a boost to your move speed. The only side note to mention is that you will ideally want the ultimate gambler blessing until the final area where you would swap it out for overconsumption. And with that, you are now equipped with the strategy to build a leaped focus bird and embarrass your friends in co-op. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you think we're making any mistakes in the build, if you had a successful run with our build, or if you have a guide request, please leave a comment down below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, do consider subscribing as we will be releasing more guides in the future. Till next time, this has been a Big Deal Guide. Good luck and take care.